Okay, so welcome everybody. We're delighted that you're joining us for the next in our series of interviews for NATECLA Scotland. And today we have the lovely Gosia Lundie, who is going to focus mainly on her literacies work, ESOL literacies work, and a recent course she did, TELTA, but to give it its full name, Teaching ESOL Literacies to Adults. So welcome, Gosia. It's lovely to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about the context that you currently teach for ESOL and ESOL Literacies.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, I work in a couple of places. I divide my time between community ESOL, which is delivered by two different councils. So it's run a little bit differently in both councils. One of the projects where I work is SQA related, so we complete some qualifications with learners. And the other project is your sort of run-of-the-mill community class where learners can focus on their needs. So it's quite nice that we can do that with them. And in both of these, we do have learners who have literacy needs, and they are in different classes, spread through these classes. It's based on mostly on their speaking level. The classes are based on that. And I also teach a big literacy class at City of Glasgow College. So we have over 20 students in that class.
Oh,
so
it's
a really big class
for literacies.
Yes, it is, but it really shows you the need as well.
So that's interesting because you've just described the sort of the range, or some of the range of literacies needs and classes and the context in which they're taught, and it varies. It's so varied.
Yeah, so you sort of need to get your head around it as well.
You do.
How you can work with learners depending on what setting you're in and what's expected of you as a teacher and where you want to get your learner to.
Yeah, and that sort of leads us nicely into, you're SELTA qualified, you've got lots of experience, but literacies is quite a sort of specific needs. And so what was it that you thought or attracted you towards the TELTA course that you thought might give you something additional?
It was being asked to cover a literacies class, and just finding myself a little bit lost with the learners, even trying to prepare myself for it. I had the experience from a few years back of volunteering in a community class where we had quite a few learners who had literacy needs. So I had an idea of how the learners might behave in a class or what their needs might be, but coming to a classroom with mostly an EFL background and looking at the learners, you have your activities prepared and you think, that didn't actually quite work. And I wasn't sure exactly why. And I thought, well, I can try and figure it out on my own, and maybe I will, maybe I won't. So why don't I start reading, but why don't I actually sign up on a course that can really help me, not only with figuring out what to do or how to do it, but also give me a better understanding of the needs of the learners and structuring of the lessons, which I thought was quite important.
Yes, I think that's a really important point. It can, as an experienced teacher, it can be quite daunting to be asked to teach literacies and to feel quite unaware of the needs and then how to meet them, and they're so varied.
Yes, absolutely.
In a big class like 20, how on earth do you do that? Yeah, so so you decided to sign up for the course, which was a online 2 hours a week. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And how did you sort of balance all that with your workload, the course workload, your work life, etc.?
With great difficulty.
Yeah, I'm sure. Quite a challenge.
It was a bit of a challenge, but to be honest with you, I was in quite a privileged position because at the time when I was completing the course, I had one afternoon without teaching. So that was my afternoon for, preparation for the course. And I was also lucky enough to be teaching literacies. Yeah. So this linked perfectly with what I was reading about, what we were covering in the course. And I could just, do it all in practice, and that sort of just extended the amount of work I put on the course, and it was great. Really, it was so practical, and it gave me an opportunity to to do the activities we talked about over and over again, and see what works, what doesn't work with this learner or with that group of learners, and that was really good as well.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I think when you're doing a course like that, to actually be able to take it immediately and apply it in a practical sense, learn a little bit more about the sort of theoretical background, and is so useful. And yes, you know, it's challenging, but it's also extremely challenging when you don't feel equipped to teach levels like ESOL literacies. So. And in relation to the assessment on the course, it's geared towards exactly what you've been discussing, and the case study of one learner. Can you explain a little bit more about how you undertook that and who you worked with?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was first of all really difficult to choose a learner because in a literacies class you have just such a variety of different students, and there were so many I wanted to use for the case study. So it was a little bit difficult to decide who should I choose to work with, because we had learners who maybe had good spoken English, but limited literacy in their first language, no literacy in their first language, or they had really good linguistic background from their first language, but maybe, you know, zero English. It was just such a mixed bag.
Yeah.
And I would have ideally taken all of them and completed case study with so many, but I chose one learner who I knew was struggling in the class, and I thought, well, maybe by doing these extra sessions and helping him understand his needs a bit more, I can also help him more directly, because like I mentioned, having over 20 students is just sometimes difficult to, you know, to attend to everybody's needs. So I selected to work with him, and it just, you know, it just ran from there, because it was really clear on the course what was expected of us.
So you're starting with a diagnostic assessment.
Exactly. So we started with a diagnostic assessment. I actually started with an interview to get a little bit more knowledge about him, and then arranged the diagnostic assessment on a separate date, because the information he gave me during the interview helped me with choosing materials for the diagnostic assessment, some more practical materials for him, basically.
Tailor it a bit,
Yeah, exactly. But also I was thinking about, you know, how could I use these materials with other learners, just for other diagnostic assessments. So I was trying to think about that at the same time. And yeah, it was very clear that, you know, what was expected of us was to do the assessment and then to plan lessons based on the needs that we identified. And it sort of felt very natural, actually, because it was a really good flow to it.
Builds sort of the beginnings of that toolbox of tricks and tips and all sorts of things that
Absolutely.
as you see, then you can take to another learner, and they will have perhaps similar and different needs. And there's so many spiky profiles within ESOL literacies, so many differences in the way people are, you know, their background, their learning background, etc. Yeah. And within that, I think there were quite a lot of, not just you working on a portfolio case study, but working with other ESOL literacies teachers in a variety of sort of settings, again, within Scotland. Was that something that played a sort of a large part of the course and you felt added to your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any experience shared is just beneficial to our practice. So if I did something that didn't quite work out, and you have an opportunity to share with other people why you think or you know it didn't work, and then had they made that mistake or they did the same thing before, that's really good. I think that's really useful.
Yes.
And our sessions, we shared a lot of tips on different activities and how we might adjust them and amend them to literacy learners, or what would work really well in a literacy class but you wouldn't really do in a different kind of class. I think that was really useful, because again, you can just take it and run with it, you know, next time you have your class and you see, did it work, and you can feed it back to the team and people you're working with. And I think the course also pushed me to look for more materials, and that's what we all talk about when it comes to literacy, how we are limited in the materials that are suitable, and also made me speak to other colleagues and say, well, actually, I found something that's really good. Look at these photos. They are based on the life in the UK. Great, so we can use them, and they're based on adults' life in the UK. And also made me look a bit more critically at some of the materials that other people were suggesting to use that, you know, I kind of felt were maybe a little bit too childish. So you can make a suggestion. Well, why don't you look on this website? You know, you can find better materials there. Yeah.
Yes, I think you've touched on a lot of the things that people who are teaching ESOL literacies are very aware of. There's a lot of material still needed within not just Scotland, within the ESOL literacies community worldwide. And it's really, really useful to know the places to go to get good materials that are not based in children's or childish.
Yeah.
And I certainly, I got tips myself from just sharing with people. And you know, NATECLA Scotland is taking that step further and has actually already, you know, in developing the WhatsApp. I'm just wondering what the specific title of it's called, because it's only just started up and running, but it's basically designed for people in the ESOL literacies world. Yeah, if anybody's interested, the ESOL Literacies Network. There is now a WhatsApp link. And again, I think the idea is to have that staff room kind of feel where people can ask, post, suggest, inform, all sorts of different things. So that's great, and that's come out of the sort of the cohort you were part of, which is really nice way to take that further and hopefully meet the needs of other ESOL literacies teachers who are sitting there thinking the same things you were thinking of, you know, a year ago. So you've added to your qualifications. So TELTA is the same level as CELTA. It's a level 9. What would you say, if you were to sum up the benefits of having done the course, the before and after? What are the main benefits for you, do you think?
I think the first thing I would say is confidence of working with the learners, because the more confident you feel, the easier the lessons become, not only for you, but for the learners. So gaining more understanding of different processes that happen when we learn to read and write was definitely beneficial. And even just the beginning of our course, where we talked about diagnostics, that was very eye-opening, because it shows you straight away things you need to pay attention to and things you have to focus on and things you then have to design your lessons around and your activities around. So that's one huge thing that I was hoping to get from the course, and I got, you know, the sort of portfolio of activities you might do with the literacies class or with literacies learner, and also how you would design a lesson based on a text, any kind of text. Because we get to that level, you know, the more experience we have when we teach, you just look at something, you think, okay, I know how I can use that. And I was really hoping to get that from the course, that, you know, I look at the text and I think, okay, well, for literacies class, this is what I can do. And I feel like I've got that confidence now that it's not, you know, it's not a problem. You just know you have to manipulate it in a certain way. And you can, and then you also know how to take it further. If someone completed the tasks, or if they're struggling with the tasks, and you just sort of see how you can maximize the opportunities for them to actually really interact with the language and give them more and more opportunities to decode and read and repeat things and look at things again, because I also feel that this is something that is really, really needed. Repetition is something that we talk about all the time. We repeatedly talked about repetition on the course, but it's just something that level really, really needs. So getting the confidence, getting sort of building up the portfolio of activities, and also, you know, just being able to get your head around the structure of the lesson, I think, with ease is something I was looking for. And I found it on the course. So
good. Yeah, confidence is such a big thing, isn't it? And then, as you say, you take that forward and you feel much more able to design or adapt or write your own materials, or know that, you know, just what a person's needs may be and how you can actually support that.
And how you can spot them, because a lot of our learners are really adept and equipped at hiding things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's one big thing where you have to notice that, you know, are they what skills are they actually using here? Are they hiding something? Are they guessing? Are they
Yes.
sort of borrowing things, and or are they steering the conversation in a different direction? Because they just do it, you know, they do it naturally, and it's a great survival skill. But
It's
if you're trying to
exactly that
help
so
them,
many have.
yeah,
So they've had
yeah,
to develop the survival skills.
yeah.
So yeah, paring that back and getting in
Mhm.
and actually really supporting them with learning is fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, we're going to be doing more of a focus on ESOL literacies and some of these interviews and 10 top tips series that we've got coming up. So thank you very much, Gosia, for starting us off. And that's really interesting. I hope very useful for other people in a similar situation. Enjoy your classes and look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sue. And I just want to say, if anybody's thinking about doing the course, just do it.
Thank
Just
you.
find a little bit of extra time and go for it, because it makes a huge difference to your lessons and to how your learners are developing.
Thanks very much, Gosia. That's really useful.